Week 6, the Integrative Wellness Collective. You know, every week I have someone coming on, a woman that comes on that inspires me, that has, been part of my life in some way. And, this week is super special for me because this is a woman that you guys are going to meet tonight that, she's been in my life for her whole life. And, she's my beautiful, amazing, talented, super duper smart, committed mom, awesome wife, like super duper powerhouse. And, I have to say that she is a person that I admire every day, and the shifts that she's made in her, I want to say young life because she's younger than I am, but she's endured a lot. Whoops. She's endured so much that
you blew me away so much. You knocked my phone off of my desk.
At least you're not crying. You were crying. You're gonna flip the phone over because I'm giving
so
you
powerful. Every single time I get crazy on the podcast, I knock my microphone off of my desk. So there you go.
Okay, there we go. So here I am telling you how amazingly awesome she is. She's also quite amazingly strong.
Oh,
but apparently her powers go beyond her strength, and she can flip cameras off of the camera.
It's no big deal, you guys. I lift cars off of babies. No, thank you, Bianca. It is so generous of you.
You inspire me every day. And, I've never been a mom, but watching you be a mom has been like the light of my life, because I know that your daughter is the extension of you and I. Mm-hmm. At least I know she's going to have rhythm. That's for sure. She could rock the step touch for sure.
So funny.
So let me tell everyone about how amazing my sister is. And so Ciara went to law school. And this is like this crazy thing where people find their way in life, in their professions at different times, and different things push them into new ways of thinking that maybe they never thought about in their younger years and their younger experiences. And I'm going to let her talk about her experience that got her there. But, she was hell bent on being an attorney. Okay. I brought her to colleges to look at colleges, and she was like on the track of going to law school after her college. And she went to law school, did the whole thing, and came out and realized like, wow, this just isn't really for me. And she had, a really very tough time. And I'll let her tell you about that tough time that kind of shifted her into this new profession, which is something that she never really had experience of in her younger years. And it shifted her mindset to become this kind of nutritional warrior. And I think that's who she's really become, and who she's becoming, and what she's teaching her child, and how she's living her life, this very authentic way of living a life that's this nutritional warrior. So she is a podcast host of a podcast called Fiercely Holistic. And obviously, we've got ferocity in this blood of ours. And she also has recently created a workshop called Tough as a Mother. And we're going to get into that later, which I'm like, it's so serendipitous that something happened in the New York Times last week that just totally coincides with her workshop, which I think for women could be really helpful. So without further ado, everyone, this is my beautiful, amazing, awesome sister, Ciara. And I want to start by asking you a question. And obviously I know the answers, but I think it's really important that people know the answers, because, what was the shift? And I know it was a very emotional shift for you.
Yeah.
But what was the shift for you to go grinding it out from law school and then finding your passion in nutrition?
Yeah.
How did it happen for you?
Well, it's interesting. I've always, it's been very important for me to live an honest life. And my mom, so we have different moms. We share a father, but we're sisters. My mom got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer right as I sat for the bar exam.
And she was how old?
56. And it was, it's so interesting. We were like, all right, well, you got this. Like, it's cancer. People get cured of cancer. Let's just find you the best doctors. We're in New York. We could do the research. We have the connections. Like, let's get you to the top cancer institute and the top thoracic surgeon, and let's go in there and just let's kill it. right? Like, no big deal. It will be rough, but we'll do it. And I so clearly remember that first appointment with the thoracic surgeon, asking him after like our hour-long appointment, like, okay, should she change her diet? And just as an aside, up until this point, I had no idea outside of you, Bianca, what it meant to live healthy. Like, it was the fat-free, the low-fat, the sugar-free, the Weight Watchers, the frozen meals, like, nothing was healthy. They were all marketed as healthy, but they weren't healthy.
Right.
So when I asked the surgeon this, I just expected him to say something along the lines of, yeah, you probably should eat healthier. And he said, no, she shouldn't change a thing. And I just intuitively knew that was the wrong answer. Like, I didn't know what the right answer was. I didn't know at the time, like, well, what should she be eating? Like, I didn't know that there are certain foods that fuel cancer. I didn't know that there are certain foods that create an alkaline environment in your body. I didn't know that being hydrated was required for every single function in our systems. I didn't know that. But what I did know was that his answer had to have been wrong. And so I left that appointment feeling really fucking pissed off. Sorry. I don't know if you curse on the Integrative Wellness Collective.
Do your thing, girl. Do your thing.
Yeah,
Be you. Be authentic.
Pissed. I was just pissed. And I wanted to scream on the rooftops, like, but she drinks a lot of wine and she doesn't eat healthy and she carries a ton of stress and she had horrific trauma growing up, like you and Michelle spoke about last week. So there was so much about her life that needed to shift.
Yeah. And
was not recommended, supported, thought about by this top thoracic surgeon that she put all of her trust into. So for me, being the research mind that I was and knowing that like there has to be answers better than his, I found Chris Carr and I found, diets for cancer and I found green juices. And like, I'm so far beyond that now, like you're not going to get healthy having just a green juice, but like that was the starting point for me in understanding there is a thing called food as medicine. And many, many people outside of America follow this idea.
Yeah.
And so that was a shift for me. So I took some time off after my mom died. I knew that being a lawyer at the time was just not in the cards for me. Like it didn't feel right, didn't sit right with my heart. And I don't even know, Bianca, how maybe it was a patient of yours, randomly mentioned the Nutritional Therapy Association.
That's right.
Yeah, and I remember you calling me and being like, hey, see, you might just want to look into this program. Yep. And I did. And I was like, this exists as a thing? Right. People like go to school for this and come out and practice and teach and empower, I'm in.
Yeah.
So that's crazy, right. Me, just like you constantly in school, I went back and I was like, I have to learn this. I need to master this. I need to spread this word, how important this is. And so unfortunately, as you know, my mom lost her battle 8 months after she got sick. But as traumatic and horrible as that experience was that we collectively went through as a family, there was like this beauty and a shift and this new opportunity to really be able to not only get myself healthy, but help my family around me. And more importantly, pass it on to my daughter, because that's not something I grew up with. And that's not something she grew up with.
No, it's funny because I was thinking about it tonight. Like, I remember taking you to college to go look at colleges, and this is, I forgot if you were a vegetarian or a vegan.
Oh, 100% it was. Yes.
I think it was at the time. And again, I'm not saying yes or no, good or bad, whatever.
Well, I mean, we should talk about that like later in the conversation, because I think there's like there's a big misunderstanding about the importance of animal protein. And like, as a recovering vegetarian, understanding where I went wrong. Yeah. I think it's an important part of the conversation. Yeah. But go ahead.
But I wanted to what dawned on me, I remembered it was kind of like one of those moments for me that we were stopping off to like get ice cream or something because we had just looked at a college and it was kind of a celebratory thing. And you were so closed down because you came from a mom that had no concept of nutrition, and everything in your home was fat free. Everything in your home was a packaged good. And, you know, I would come over for dinner and, you know, mom would get takeout, right? Or I remember the whole meatball incident where she was mad at you for like making meatballs. But you weren't a vegetarian at the time. I remember this is like flip-flopping. I'm kind of going through different time cycles for you. But I remember feeling sad because, you know, you are part Italian, right? So, and you know that food is also about that socialization and being happy and enjoying meals together and the joyousness of food. And I think in our diet culture right now, I remember when I was going to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, one of the one things that stood out to me was the whole idea of, you know, when you take out a food group, you immediately feel deprived.
1,000%.
And then being in the food culture that we're in, it's like you become almost obsessive about it. And then there's a deprivation there. And then you feel really like something's missing. And then you can, you know, have all of these hormonal stress responses just because of you're missing out, or you're enjoying, you know, you can't enjoy it watching someone else eat it. So, you know, I saw this shift in you. And then obviously when you went to your nutritional program, it was like this amazing awareness that you had. And then, you know, talk about epigenetic changes, like the shift that you made really is the ability to heal your daughter so that she then can heal her future generations, which is just a tremendous and very brave thing that you did, because you went from not knowing anything really about food.
Nothing.
Although you did have from our grandmother on dad's side, you had the knowingness of what good food was. You just didn't know how to create it or manifest it for yourself.
I have to tell you, I remember, so when I was in the NTA, I was a vegetarian. And through our schooling, I learned about the importance of animal protein, and especially for a woman, especially if I wanted to get pregnant. And at the time, you know, it was like pre-Libby. And I remember they were all like coaching me. They were like, right, Ciara, you could do it. Like, start with chicken. And I remember they had this woman brought in snacks that she made, chips cooked in duck fat. And like, they had like this whole like bar of like munchies that were super healthy. And I remember having that and being like, this is what a chip should taste like. And then I remember them like totally supporting me and having that first piece of chicken and how good it felt for me. And I think what was so beautiful about the experience going through the NTA was there was no judgment. There wasn't like snide comments that you get from people like, oh, now you're having chicken. Like, there was none of that. It was just this love and this support. And like, you want to heal your body and you want to show up as the best version of you. Well, we want to support you in doing that. So the NTA was a beautiful experience, not only from like a professional standpoint to make these connections professionally. That's how Kristen and I met, right? My podcast co-host Kristen, that's how she and I met. And she's one of my best friends and we speak the same language, and it's so beautiful to be able to go back and forth with another woman that understands, right? And that like doesn't get caught up in the BS of all the diet culture.
Right. And I think also though, our society in general has a way of demonizing food. You know, I mean, look at just, you know, for us as women, right? I mean, you have to fit the mold, you have to fit into this certain size, you know, you have to look a certain way, you have to get plastic surgery to like fit into skinny jeans or whatever it might be. And you know, it takes away from like the enjoyment of eating food, but at the same time, it doesn't, you know, with all the crap that's out there, it doesn't allow you to make the healthier choices. Although you and I, the types of people that we are, we have clients and we have patients that we can at least educate in this way. Right. I mean, it's like when you look at how a supermarket is set up, right? Like the periphery of the supermarket versus the internal aisles, right? Like really the healthiest stuff is on the outside. And then the deeper you go, it's like Dante's Inferno, you know, like the deeper you go, you know, you get into the pit of the volcano, you know, until you reach the Pepsi and the Coca-Cola and the, you know, crap foods. You know, but that's, you know, that's the marketing culture too, right? So, okay, so let's go into what are struggles, I guess, that you've gone through personally, or that you've seen in your clientele that really keeps them from attaining their nutritional goals?
Yeah, I
Or
love
what
this
kind of
question.
goals do they have nutritionally?
Yeah, so I love this question for a number of reasons, because I think talking about these things makes us all more connected, and knowing that almost all of us struggle with the same stuff.
Yeah.
So number one, when I take on a client, whether or not they sign on with me or I do like a free 20-minute consult, I always ask, what is your biggest struggle and what would hold you back? So overall, I would say I mostly work with women, or only work with women at this point. Mostly all women struggle with finding the time, because they have this preconceived notion that eating healthy is Thanksgiving dinner, right? That it's like a big meal that you need to cook 2 hours in the kitchen for. That they don't have the time, that they don't have the money. And their biggest struggle is knowing what to eat because of all the fancy marketing. Yeah. So this is good for you, and this is natural, and this is organic, but it's not organic, but it is organic, and this has no sugar, and that sugar is not, and it's like, they get overwhelmed and crazy. And of course they would. Like, of course they would. There's no clear answer for most people that aren't in a very educated space like we are, to understand what's good and what's bad. But Bianca, what shocks me the most about the women I work with is most of the time their biggest struggle is themselves. Is their mindset coming in that they're not going to be able to do it, so they don't even try.
Right.
And that makes me very sad.
Of course.
And when we get to talking about the program Tough as a Mother that I created, one of the biggest reasons I created that was because I saw, it was not even a joke, I think for like 2 months in a row, a string of women that I almost was like, are you reading off of a script? You're all saying the same thing. You're all saying you're tired. You're all saying you're overwhelmed. You're all saying you're stressed out. You're all saying you're living day to day. You're all saying you live day to day, but then feel guilty you're not doing more. You feel guilty that you're ordering in because you don't have the time, because you don't have the energy. And it's this vicious cycle. It's like we're running on a hamster wheel. Yeah. Yeah. And it makes me so sad, because honestly, it's really, at the end of the day, quite simple what we need to eat. It's not complicated. So talking about what you're saying about shopping on the perimeter, you want to eat whole foods. You want to eat animals. You want to eat high quality animals, like pasture raised. And that's another thing we can get into if we have some time to talk about, like, the importance of quality. But at the end of the day, it's the fruits, it's the vegetables, it's the organic, non-processed, non-GMO grains. It is the foods that don't need to have an ingredient label. That don't need to come in a package. Those are the foods. So when you think about it, it's not deprivation. We're talking about what are the foods our bodies need. Bottom line. Yeah. It's not fancy.
No, it's not. But I think because of the marketing, and, honestly, who doesn't, I know I do, because I love to cook, but watching, the cooking shows and stuff, sometimes it's intimidating, because you're looking at them make these tremendous meals, and it's like, how long would that take me? I could never do that, because it takes too much time.
They're professionals. It's like looking at Tom Brady and wondering why you're not scoring it. Well, he doesn't score touchdowns, but you know what I mean? It's like,
why you don't win the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Right. It's like, it's not realistic. Well, who are you comparing yourself to?
Right, but that's our culture, though, right? It's like this chronic competitive culture. Thin enough, pretty enough, skinny enough, healthy enough.
Which
it just goes on and on.
During the conversation. Yeah, because that's not it. It's like, how do you live in the healthiest, most vibrant body that you can live
you
in? Right,
for you. Yes. Exactly. It's all about what you can do for you. Exactly. Right. And I've had this conversation so many times with my patients that are like not hydrated enough, not eating well, that are trying to recover, and I'm like, how you're not going to recover if you're just eating like donuts. Right. Yes, we do start on the outer aisles. It's exactly what we talked about. But it's like, if you can't eat well, you're not going to recover. You're going to stay in a pro-inflammatory state, and you're going to see all of these illnesses and all of these sicknesses, and it's not going to be good. You're not going to get the outcome that you want.
Have you heard of Pottinger's cats? Mm-mm. So we learned about, he was a doctor. We learned about him in school, and he had a study that he had a variety of different groups of cats. They were all the same generation. One set of cats, he fed their natural raw diet. It was raw milk. The second set of cats, he fed processed milk. In 3 generations, the cats that had the processed milk were like unable to walk. They were like deformed. They were super, super sick. And when he reversed that diet, it took 4 generations for those cats in that sick lineage to get well.
Wow.
We are no different.
No, we're not.
So this is a conversation like our great-great-grandparents didn't eat the stuff we're eating now.
Nope.
And how can we, while we need to accept some sort of convenience, right? Because our lives are very different and much faster, and there's much more demand on us as humans. How though can we collectively as a society come back around and say, okay, we need to vote with our dollar, and we need to really put our money where our mouth is, and only buy or mostly buy the things that are going to fuel us, because these money hungry companies are going to want to produce what we want to buy. But we need to stop buying Doritos. Like, bottom line. We need to stop doing that. And that's where it's going to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where your attorney mind is going to pull us.
Yes.
Like that.
Like, thinking.
Yeah. So which is great, because I'm segueing into this kind of third question that I had cultivated, and, you know, being that we live in a diet culture, right? And quick fixes, packaged goods, you know, and you and I talk about this kind of ad nauseum, the, you know, the MLM bot coaches, right? So, and I'm not, you know, saying anybody on here that might be a health coach that went through an MLM program, but sometimes it's really hard for somebody that's gone to school for a few years to learn about nutrition. And it's the same thing for me as an acupuncturist looking at physical therapists that take a weekend dry needling course, right? You're not educated enough, so it's really hard for me to say, like, yeah, let me take diet advice or nutritional advice from somebody who's really working on an MLM kind of pyramid situation where they're making money from that. So, you know, I wanted to just touch on that because, you know, how have you seen this come about with the clients that you treat? And, you know, because I get patients all the time that come in that are on these like crazy things, and I'm like, who put you on that?
Yeah.
And what do you mean you're on a detox and, you know, you're having like this massive inflammatory reaction, and have you seen your doctor because of this?
Right.
You know, like what, you know, it's kind of like back in the era of like going through Cosmopolitan.
Right.
I mean, that was kind of pre your time really in a way, but it was my generation, like getting advice from like a sexy magazine, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, you know, here we are getting educated by people that have zero or very little education when it comes to really, you know, teaching someone about nutrition. Yeah.
Well, there's so many, my mind goes to so many directions on how I want to answer this, but I think number one, like, this is the bottom line. It is $172 billion a year industry. If it worked, it wouldn't exist. If the fad diets worked, Americans wouldn't be spending that much money on it. So the detoxes, the this, the that, these things just don't work. Our bodies require certain foods to survive, not thrive, survive. And included in those list of foods is not fake processed shakes and quick fixes. They do not work. So when I work with people, I've gotten to the point now where I'm quite confident in what I do and what I teach. And so I say right off the bat, I am an anti-diet holistic nutritionist. We do not count calories. We do not weigh food. We are going to be talking about how your body responds to certain varieties of foods, to certain ratios of macronutrients, like very loose, because I don't want to get into that counting, right? I think we totally lose the idea when we become hyper focused on one or two things. But I have to tell you, there are some women that start my program that cannot finish it because it goes back to their mindset. They cannot accept that sometimes health is not linear, and health, when you're on your health journey, it is not quick. Right. So if you want to lose 30 pounds, right? Let's just say it's 30 pounds. How long did it take you to gain that 30 pounds? You think you're losing it in 2 weeks?
Right.
Right? So like
So
this
true.
is it. It's like
Yeah,
we need to
it's
shift
so
our
true.
mindset. What is
Yeah.
realistic and what we're talking about. You're
Yeah.
not going to lose that poundage by starving yourself, because that is not going to last.
Right. Right.
So it is this overarching conversation about like, let's just be really transparent. Let's be authentic, and let's say what's real. Like, how are you living your life? What are your day-to-day habits look like? Are you supporting your goals, right? So like I say to a lot of my women, you know, you want to lose weight, that's wonderful. Open up your kitchen cabinet and tell me the first thing you see, right? Is it healthy, high quality, kick-ass ingredients? Or is it highly processed foods and condiments and rice-a-roni? And there's no judgment, because we all start somewhere. But the conversation, it has to be an honest conversation. So there are no quick fixes. There are absolutely no quick fixes.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, when I decided, when was this, about 5 years ago, I had stepped on the scale, and I was, you know, I'm only 5'3", right? I was 140 pounds. It was the heaviest I had ever been. But I was working a ton. I was super stressed out. I wasn't really exercising much at that time. I was in my early 40s, and I really had this like moment where I went, holy crap. I can't go into menopause overweight, you know, because I look at all of my menopausal female friends, you know, with the menopause and, you know, they could, you know, they have, their metabolism goes down and they're having all of these issues, and they're, you know, gaining so much weight and they can't get it off. And I decided to really take a look at my, first of all, quantity, right? Here I go being Italian again, because I could eat like nobody's business. So I had to really look at the quantity of food, and quality was never an issue because I was always very healthy. But I did wind up following more of a macronutrient. At the time, they were kind of calling it flexible dieting. I hate the word diet. So again, it brought in that deprivation for me. But it was important because I was able to eat whatever I wanted, right? I mean, I could have the, you know, chocolate if I wanted, but I also had to be very mindful of, was I getting in enough good things to offset that, you know, maybe something that wasn't so good. So let's segue into macronutrients, because this is something that a lot of my patients say, like, what's a macronutrient? Like I get my vitamins. I'm like, those are micronutrients. So let's tell everyone the difference.
So this is again, like, really much more simple than we make it out to be. So macronutrients are simply the foods that your body requires to survive. These are the things that fuel your cells, your organs, your systems, your entire functioning body. So it is your fat, your protein, your carbohydrates, and also your water. So there's 4 macronutrients. So the 3 you have to eat, the 1 you have to drink. There are very loose guidelines as to the percentages of macronutrients each person should ingest. And I'm hesitant to share them, but I will, because I this is an important conversation to have. But this is what I'm going to say before I share the percentages. Depending on the season of life you are in, right? So are you trying to get pregnant? Are you super active? Are you breastfeeding? Are you, you know,
under high stress?
Are you under a ton of stress? These will shift. And they will not only shift person to person, but they will shift within each person depending on where they're at, right? So as a general rule, very general rule of thumb, 40% of your day or your plate should be carbohydrates. Carbohydrates meaning leafy greens, vegetables.
Good carbohydrates.
Good carbohydrates, right?
Can I just interject really quick? Because everyone thinks that, like, oh, I'm on a no carb diet.
Right. Again.
Well, okay, you could maybe be off the Doritos and the Oreos.
Right.
But your carbohydrates need to come from some sort of leafies.
Right. So we need to be shifting it. So what you should be doing is saying, I'm on a no processed foods diet.
Bingo. Ding, ding, ding,
yeah.
ding,
And
ding,
it's
ding.
like, we're mislabeling.
Yeah.
And so this is like important, right?
Yeah.
So your carbohydrates are going to be all your vegetables. They do include your grains, although like your grains, your potatoes, your, you know, tubers, all those types of things should be the smaller side of your plate. But if you were an athlete, if you were Bianca doing a triathlon, you're going to need those grains. That is going to be your quick fuel, right? Those are like the kindling on the fire. So it goes, and then it goes away, right? So that's your carbs. That's like the biggest portion. So your vegetables, followed quickly by your healthy fats, 30%, and your healthy proteins, 30%. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that's 100%. I am not a mathematician. So that is what your day should look like. Ideally, it should be meal to meal, but the reality is that doesn't always happen. There are times when, like for lunch today, I was in a rush and I had yogurt with some sprouted granola. That is way more fat and way more carbs than it was protein.
That's right.
So for dinner, I just made sure that I had way more protein on my plate than I did fat. So it's this like beautiful balancing act. But what I want to say is that when you are incorporating whole foods, nutrient-dense whole foods, you're never in one category. So like take an almond, for example. Almond has fat, almond has carbs, and almond has protein. Right? Quinoa, same thing.
Quinoa, higher in protein.
Tons and tons of protein.
Yeah.
A little bit of carbohydrates and practically no fat.
Right.
But then you'll take like a piece of spinach and believe it or not, there's protein in that spinach.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
This is what I'm saying. Like when you are eating real whole foods, you are going to get, hopefully with a variety of a diet, everything you'll really need.
Yeah.
And so the idea here is when you're talking about macronutrients is really talking about whole foods. How can I be incorporating these beautiful, complex, interconnected whole foods that carry cofactors that help each other become absorbed and utilized? And so then with micronutrients, because you mentioned that, micronutrients are typically found in your macronutrients. And it says micro just because you need less of them, but they're not less important. And those are your vitamins and minerals. Yeah,
it was great. I mean, and macronutrients, proteins, carbs, fats, so important. And I think what happens is that well-balanced meals, I think when people hear that like well-balanced meal, they don't entirely know what that means. Right. Because, and they're kind of confused by it. But, you know, should you regulate nuts? That's what Lauren is asking.
Yeah. So like, this is a great example of bio-individuality. Like some people that I work with really don't do very well on nuts. Other people do really well on nuts. So I would say, Lauren, figure out, like, are you reacting in a way that maybe you're itchy, or are you bloated, or do you have diarrhea, or does your stomach hurt after having nuts? Become a little more curious about how your body is reacting to those foods and see if you can answer that on your own. And if not, it would be a great idea to work with a practitioner or a professional that will help you kind of uncover the pieces to the puzzle. Like one of the things that I do is help my clients figure out, well, what are the best foods for your body? What do you do best on, right? Like so many women come to me terrified of gluten, terrified of dairy, and it's not everyone can have gluten, but it's like, we need to have the conversation of, well, how are you reacting? Do you do fine on it? So so that's
like, I so want to love beans.
Yeah.
I so want to love beans.
Right.
I've never done great on beans.
Never done great. Right.
I mean, my stomach bloats. And I could do sprouted. I will soak them. You know, I don't know if everyone knows, but you know, there's the phytase is what sits on the outside of the bean. And like, if you soak your beans before you cook them with a little acidity, so salt and water or vinegar and water, you can see that kind of, what is it, like that scummy stuff that comes on top, right? And that's the acidity breaking down the phytase, so it becomes that phytic acid. And then what happens is that we don't have the enzymes to break that down. So by soaking your beans or whatever you want to soak like that, you're almost like pre-digesting it for yourself. Even the pre-digested, I can't handle.
You can't do it.
I can't
And
do it.
so,
And I would do anything for lentil soup.
Yeah.
I love lentil
I know
soup,
you
but my body doesn't love lentil
Yeah.
soup.
Yeah. And it's something that's really important to pay attention to. And I think too often we're given plenty of signs from our body on what works and what doesn't.
That's right.
And we choose to ignore it, mostly because we're just not well educated in getting in touch with like the intuition, our innate wisdom, right? Our bodies know. Like, one of the things that I offered all of my clients that I work with one-on-one is this like fine-tuning chart, a macronutrient fine-tuning chart that they taught us in school. So like, one of the things we'll say in the category, if you had proper macronutrient ratios, you will feel satisfied, you will feel the same amount of energy you did before you ate, you will feel happy, energetic, all these things. You have the wrong macronutrient ratio if you feel like something's missing, if you're craving a sweet, if you want something else, you know, that feeling of just like, ugh, I'm like not hungry, but like I just want something.
Not satisfied.
Your macronutrient ratio is off. So I say to my people, mostly the women that I work with, look at your plate. What looked off? Did you have way too many starchy carbs? Did you have enough fats? Did you have enough protein? Most of the time it's not enough protein.
Not enough protein. Exactly.
That's usually what it boils down to. But it's just, again, coming full circle and like, how can we simplify this and keep this conversation coming back to yourself? How do I feel?
How do you feel? How do you feel? Yeah. And we're so disconnected, I think, in our society from that. You know,
100%.
even patients that come to see me all the time, it's like, well, you know, or an athlete, right? They push themselves to do something. I'm like, well, how did that make you feel?
Right.
You know, it made me feel worse. Well, then why are you doing that? Right. Or, you know, somebody with like psoriasis or eczema or some sort of like dermatitis issue. They eat something that creates an inflammatory response, and all of a sudden they have hives and they're more itchy. And I'm like, and you eat that every day?
Yeah.
You know, like, have you not made the connection yet? Right. That maybe that food was a trigger for you.
Right.
So that you now have an issue. Right.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to say to that is that let's just take skin issues as an example, because skin issues 90% of the time are from a gut imbalance. You may have to give up certain foods for a short period of time. Right. Until your body gets to a more balanced state. So what that frame of time could look like, it could be 2 months, it could be 6 months, it may be a year, right? But there should never be unless you're highly allergic, like celiac,
of course,
there should really never be a removal of a food group forever. And so I just wanted to say that, because I think, again, there's this like misconception. I get a lot of women, the first question, well, what do I have to give up? And it's like, well, you don't have to give up anything. I may recommend that you give up some foods for a short period of time so we can play around and see how you feel. Right. But this is still your journey and still your choice. And oftentimes they'll give it up and they'll feel really good, and we'll reintroduce it and it will be like no big deal, right? They just like don't have the understanding of the connection between the foods in our bodies. Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting, when I went to the Integrative Nutrition School, that we talked about what they called the crowding out theory, which I kind of like that idea, is that if you can crowd out all the crap, you won't necessarily have any need for it. And this goes back to like just what you were saying, like if you really create this very well-balanced meal for yourself, you're not going to have the cravings to go towards the crappy thing. Right. It's true. Because you've crowded it out by crowding in all the good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how quickly your body responds to that too. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So let's get into, we talked a bit of, when I kind of created these questions for you about hydration, because this is another thing that, you know, I'm like a damn camel personally. You know, you always yell at me that I'm not drinking enough water. I could literally do a half Ironman and be out there for 6 hours. And if I get through like a bottle of water and I'm dying at the finish line. I know. But it's like, oh, I just, drinking is just not a thing, you know, and not just drinking water, but like just, drinking's like not my thing. You know, I'm not one of those people like in high school or college, it would be like, yeah, let's go to the bar and drink. I'm like,
can't we go to have dinner and eat instead? And
Back
then we'll
to
have
the
some
food.
wine. Like, I want the food. I don't want the drink. So like how, like, and I'm not the only one, because believe me, all of my patients, I'm like, how much have you drank today? And they're like, oh, like 2 cups of water.
Yeah.
So like, how does someone have more of a palatable experience with drinking? How do you get them to drink more?
Yeah.
And mind you, I don't drink anything but really water or carbonated. That you know, you got me on the soda stream, but how do you do it? I've even tried that stupid watch that tells you every hour to drink, and I'm like, delete. I'm not thirsty.
I think it's a great question that has kind of a 2-part answer. So like a generalized answer, and then, because I know you, like more of a like a pointed answer.
Personal.
But I would say so generally speaking, most people are living in a dehydrated body. They just are. Not only because they're not drinking enough water, but because they're drinking and eating things that are dehydrating them. So that's just like right out on the outset. But if you are not on any sort of supplements, like specifically like B vitamins, and your urine is clear or straw colored, maybe you just don't need as much water. So look in the toilet bowl, like the collective you, and what's coming out. Does it smell? What does the color look like? Get curious, right? The same way I tell all of my people, and I'm sure you do too, like what are your poops look like? Right? Do they float? Do they sink? What is the shape? Do you see food? Are they loose? Are they, are they tight? Are they crumbly? Do you
go every day?
Right.
That's another issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
many people don't, by the way.
Speaking to water, it's like, as a general rule, we should be drinking half our body weight in fluid ounces. So if you're a 140-pound woman, you should be drinking 70 ounces of water as a baseline per day. Mm-hmm. For me, that's not an issue. Like, it's fine for me. It's not a thing. It wasn't always that way, but it's just what I've gotten accustomed to doing. But for you, Bianca, maybe you don't need as much water. And
I don't have, when I look at my urine, it's clear all the time.
So
it's not an
then
issue.
Maybe you don't need as much. Also, I think we noticed a difference when you started incorporating the mineral water. So a lot of times when we are drinking very, unfortunately, poor quality water from our municipal facilities, or even worse, like a Poland Spring bottle, they're filled with not great things, and our bodies don't want it.
That's right.
So it's, again, this like innate
listening
intelligence
to your body.
that our body doesn't want the things that it has to filter out. That's
Yeah.
number one. And then number two is if we're living in a very mineral deficient body as well. So like because of our soils depleted, back to the water being just filled with chemicals and runoff and all this stuff, we need those minerals as electrolytes to actually help our body, our cells absorb the water.
Right.
So you may not be thirsty, the collective you may not be thirsty because you're actually deficient in electrolytes. So a super great trick, a really easy trick, short of going out and getting a really high quality water filter, which I highly recommend we all do, is adding a pinch of Himalayan sea salt in your water with a little bit of lemon for taste. And that will provide your body with the minerals, the electrolytes to be able to absorb and utilize your water. When you are first starting to drink water, your body will have to regulate. So you may be going to the bathroom a little bit more than you're used to. No, that will even out, right? You're not going to live in the bathroom. There will be like a fluctuation period in the beginning. In terms of tips, one of, the most fun thing that I do with my women is say, leave a bottle of water in every room, and together it should equal like your daily amount for the day, which honestly is not a lot when you think about it. Like, 7 glasses of 10 ounces. Like that's not really very much. I bet you this is 10 ounces, right?
Right.
And every time you go into the room, you drink the water. And by the end of the day, it should be empty. And it's almost like this fun game. You don't have to do anything that feels annoying or stressful. We're all home. So let's just add a little spice to our day.
That's right.
Maybe get crazy and do like a lemon water and a lime water and a grapefruit water. Just get totally crazy. And that's just a fun way of doing it. And You could do the thing where you put a timer on your phone. You could do a thing where, you are just focusing in the morning and in the evening. Start slowly. So if you're only starting with 2 bottles of water a day, so arguably 16 ounces, maybe make your goal 30 ounces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't start at 70, because then the chances are you're not going to be able to do that. And then
I think most people have
garbage.
goal issues that are like way off.
Yeah. And
right?
that's the thing. It's like, start small, be very actionable and intentional with what you are choosing to do.
Yeah.
I was reading this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he said, if you want to be a runner, it's not about the marathon, it's about putting on your shoes.
That's right.
And I loved it, because it's like, it's the mindset that I am a runner and I'm just going to put on my shoes. That is my only goal for today. And the chances are you're going to have your shoes on, you're going to go somewhere, right? You're not going to sit on your couch.
And I think when I think again, going back to this crazy society that we live in, it's like we have these big giant goals and then we always feel defeated because we can't meet them because they're not attainable because they're too big. Right. But anything's attainable if you take bite-sized pieces of it to get there.
Right. And I think the other piece to that is we're very isolated. Even though we're hyper connected on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all these things and Zoom calls, we're isolated. Yeah. And creating community of like-minded people, finding people that want to achieve what you want to achieve is going to be key. It is vital. Yeah. So who are your people? Find them.
Right. Right. Who's your tribe?
Who are they? Yeah. And hold each other accountable, Yeah.
So I want to, because we don't have that much time left, I do want to talk about, you have this great thing about shelter, and support in your home environment. And I think that's something so relevant, especially right now, being that everyone's, just living home and not getting out and doing everything here. Yeah. This brings me to, I don't know if anybody read it, but I sent you all that information on the New York Times did an incredible series last week called The Primal Scream. Mm-hmm. And it was really it was focused towards mothers in particular and how difficult this,
I didn't get that.
Oh,
could you try again?
Okay, well, apparently Siri didn't get that. And I was going to say the PANDEMIC word because I don't want to get kicked off of this site just in case we can't use the word
so
either
funny.
For the opposite of bacteria. But anyway, I digress. So what they were talking about was with women and how hard it's been for them. Like 1 million women have left the workforce, right? With this whole thing and the loss of their job. The statistics were staggering in that women, the amount of women that left the workforce is almost equivalent now to the amount of women that were in the workforce in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. And that's really scary because it's going to take that much time to rebuild up again. Women are typically in a position where, they get married, they leave their career, they raise their children, they've raised their children for 20 years. Now they're in their 50s. They can't connect to where their professional career was prior because they're totally out. They've out-aged themselves and they have no connection of how to get back there again. And now they're kind of floundering. So, you have this place of this shelter that the mom it's so important for her to create at home. But how much of that, if the dad then, or the partner is a full-time worker, and then it's now a mom is the mom, the provider, the child care, the teacher now, somebody mentioned, not finding enough time. And also, how do you educate your child if your job is not to be a teacher? Mm-hmm. So, what happens to the shelter piece, especially for a woman during now, and how do you support her? How do we support her?
Yeah, so I think it's really important that we're having this conversation and that the New York Times kind of put this on blast and made it front and center for people to acknowledge and recognize, like, it's harder than ever before, right? And so there's so many different layers here. Ultimately, your home should be your shelter, your safe haven. It should be the space for you that brings you joy, that is filled with the things that are going to support your success. So in my program, Tough as a Mother, we have an entire week focused on this. And this isn't necessarily, I will touch on like the emotional support at home, but setting yourself up at home is going to be paramount. And so I am pretty no BS about, if you're living in a home that is yours, that you are running, you must set it up to work for you, right? It shouldn't have to work for only one person or just your kids. It has to work for you. If you're the one cooking, if you're the one cleaning, if you're the one doing all the things, make it work for you. So in my program, I really talk to my women about setting up their kitchen and setting up their bedroom, because we need to make sure you were eating, fueling well, and we need to make sure you were getting your 8 hours of therapeutic sleep. This is when you restore, when you are repairing, you need those 8 hours. So what that situation may look like in your bedroom could be focusing on removing Wi-Fi, focusing on removing the EMFs, focusing on keeping it clutter-free and clean. And obviously these are more luxurious items, but like making sure you're sleeping on a really good quality mattress and nice comfortable pillows and comfortable blankets and sheets. Really simple things that we deserve as women, we deserve as moms, and we need to be healthy. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of your kitchen, it's the same extension. Like, how is your kitchen set up? Do you have the tools that you need to cook? Do you have a good quality cutting board? You don't need a lot. Do you have a nice wood cutting board? Do you have sharp knives? Do you have a set of kitchen shears? Do you have a couple of stainless steel pots and pans? What does your kitchen setup look like? Or do you have non-toxic, the non-stick everything with canola oil and all these spices that are filled with garbage gums and additives and preservatives? What's in your kitchen? Right. And how are you going to set yourself up for success? So 2 resources outside of my program. On the podcast, we have an entire episode with another functional nutritional therapy practitioner, Brian Hoyer, who is an absolute expert in EMFs. This guy will blow your mind. I think he went to Germany to study. Like, he's just beyond words. We have an entire episode dedicated to setting up your bedroom. And then your kitchen, it's really about, we also have a podcast episode on that called The Kitchen Detox, but how to make sure that you are really incorporating all the things that are going to support your goals, whatever those goals may look like. And then I know we're running out of time, but like in terms of familial support, you have to put yourself first sometimes. And if you're happy, they're happy. And if you're healthy, they're healthy. So it's really about having confidence in what it is you need and really moving forward with that confidence and knowing that you need to take care of your body.
I think also asking is a really important thing, that
asking for help.
When a mom is in overwhelm, especially a single mom, even, right? Single mom with multiple kids, they might need to ask for some help, whether it's from friends or family members, or if you have a partner at home, can they help you? Yeah. I think we have this idea of like being superhuman all the time, that we can juggle a million things and take care of the kids and do all that.
No, it's not realistic.
It's not realistic, and you're gonna really be in a bad space.
Yeah.
So then take me to your Tough as a Mother, and this is how we're gonna end it, because I think it's such an important thing and support for women, and just that it tied into the Primal Scream, which is serendipitous.
Yeah, so it was born out of need. Like I said to you earlier in this conversation, I saw a string of women all having the same struggles. And I thought to myself, how can I support specifically moms? It will extend eventually to beyond moms, but right now, how can I support moms to get out of survival mode by providing them with simple strategies to fuel their bodies and shift their habits? Because at the end of the day, that's what you need to do if you want to get healthy, regardless of what your goal is. You want to be a triathlete, you want to lose 100 pounds, you want to, have 6-pack. You have to fuel your body right, and you have to shift your habits, because the habits that have gotten you to where you are now are not serving you. Right. And granted, in this pandemic, there's a lot that's outside of us, that is kind of controlling the situation. But within it, we still have a choice. How are we choosing to live? So I created this program out of need. It makes my heart so filled with joy talking about it, because this first round of women they kicked ass. Like, they all had little kids at home. They came into the program struggling bad, and they left it feeling excited, rejuvenated, like totally back to themselves, happy to cook, finding time with their family. They found time that was hidden behind social media. Like, so they found it, and it was beautiful. And so we go through a week talking about hydration, how to do it, sample schedules, tips and tricks, what it looks like for you. We talk about food, all your macronutrients, meal planning, how to set your kitchen up. We talk about your shelter, how to set up your bedroom and kitchen for success, so you are able to heal your body and repair. And then lastly, we close it out with talking about breath, how breath is the connector for all of us, how your detoxification, your digestion, your sleep, your energy, your brain, every single cell all relies on breath. And when we are stressed, we take these short, very shallow chest breaths, and that affects everything. We're not expelling the toxins. We're not allowing our body to get into parasympathetic state, which is rest and digest. We're constantly going to be stuck in survival.
That's right.
And I close it out very intentionally with breath, because I want it to be like a pretty bow. It's like, now you have all these skills. You know how to drink to stay hydrated. You know how to fuel your body to stay strong. You know how to set up your environment for success and building your habits. And now we tie it together with breath.
I love that.
And yeah, it's beautiful. And so I'm running another program starting the 18th of February. So not tomorrow, next Thursday. And I'm opening up registration for that tomorrow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so anyone on this listening to your IG Live that's part of your wellness collective, I'm offering $25 off with the code YASQueen. YASQueen. And I will post that for you.
I love it.
And it's just, we're changing the world. We're changing the conversation.
Yeah. I want to add one tip that I found that was like super helpful for me in my bedroom situation.
Yeah.
Blackout shades.
Yes. Huge.
Blackout shades.
Absolutely.
And I find, have you ever gone to, well, not that we go to hotels anymore because we're not traveling.
Yeah.
But have you ever noticed that, like, when you go to a hotel room and they have like those double shades?
Yeah.
And like you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh my God, what time is it?
Yeah.
It's like noon, and you're like, how did I sleep that much? And it made such a difference in my sleeping situation. I also don't have a television. I don't like a television that's on in my bedroom.
Yeah.
I try not to bring, and you also taught me this about the EMF stuff, turning your cell phone on airplane mode.
Yeah.
So I do that before I go to bed as well.
Yeah.
So that I don't have any
It's
Wi-Fi.
little things. They all add up. Small atomic changes, small shifts add up to big changes.
Yeah. And also one thing I was thinking about too earlier, just jumping back to the macronutrients and like hydration. One of the things that people don't realize too is that you do get some hydration from your foods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, and I was looking that up today and how cool it was, because you can, watermelon's like 92% water.
Right.
But cantaloupe, strawberries.
There are a lot of foods that dehydrate you. So
yes,
processed foods, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, yes, if you don't want to drink your water, absolutely eat the things that have a lot of water content in them, including like the leafy greens in the summer, right? Eating them raw. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's in Chinese medicine. When I was in acupuncture school, we went through nutritional program too for Chinese medicine. And one of the things in summer, to clear summer heat, right? So if you're too hot, one of the ways to clear summer heat is by eating watermelon.
Yeah.
And it literally brings down that internal thermostat, right? That's just when you're overheated. If you take some watermelon, you're going to bring that down. But Lauren, she just said something about a Yogi sleep noise machine. I actually have always slept with a noise machine. It's one of those white noise that you see in a therapist's office. It's funny because I can't sleep without it now. And when I go away, or if I'm at, the beach house or whatever, I bring it because I need to have it with me in the room. I know people sleep with fans on, just sort of ambient noise.
Yeah, whatever your thing is, like, there's nothing bad about that.
No. But
And-
people that fall asleep with the television on,
Right.
it's so distracting, and it, you know, again, there's the EMFs and the radiation and all that stuff. So
and it messes with your melatonin production, the
right.
blue light, the lights. So it's
Yeah.
like, how can we focus on creating an ancestral environment? That's one of the things that Brian talks about that I thought was really
Cave.
brilliant. It's like, right,
Cave.
sleep in a cave,
Right.
eat raw meat. No, don't eat raw meat. I mean, you can, but just make sure it's from a good source. But anyway, you know, it's about creating a safe, comfortable space. And how
Yes.
are you going to be able to do that for yourself? Because only you could do that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one more thing about just this hyper stress state, which so many of us are in for so long periods of time. You know, adrenaline is a good thing, right? Adrenaline's good when, you know, you have this quick stress response, right? You were talking before about the fight or flight, the rest and digest, you know, but when we're in a chronic state of stress, you know, you're not only producing adrenaline, but now you're producing cortisol. And what happens for people that don't know out there, you know, when you're in this high cortisol state, it down regulates your immune response. It down regulates your digestion. It decreases your metabolic, you know, your metabolism, the way you're metabolizing food. So you see people that do, you know, gain weight per se when they're in a high cortisol state. When you're in a more of an adrenaline state, it decreases your need to eat, because on a very primal level, your body is getting the alert that your muscle system, your brain, all of that needs a flood of blood and a flood of oxygen to run away from the lion.
Right.
So then what happens is that if that stress response doesn't relax and doesn't go down and doesn't decrease, you're staying in that steady state of chronic stress, chronic cortisol. You're never going to lose the weight. You're never going to sleep. You're never going to get out of that spiral.
Right.
So, you know, how can you find ways that are going to mitigate the stress response?
Right. And that's survival mode.
Bring down the cortisol.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you were talking about breath before from a very physiological standpoint. The breath itself is, you know, the lungs cover the thoracic spine and the sympathetic nervous system trunk. The nerves of the sympathetic nervous system run, the ganglion of that system run in the thoracic spine. So the ability to actually breathe, you're stimulating your autonomic nervous system to balance out that fight or flight and rest and digest system.
It's
so
very important.
When you're stressed out, what happens?
Right.
You're stuck here, stuck here. And that hyper, you know, the hyper breathing starts, and then you can't bring down that stress response.
And the beautiful thing, Bianca, is that, and I know you know this, but our bodies are constantly in a search for balance. Our bodies don't want to be stuck in survival mode. It does not want to be stuck there. It is our jobs to acknowledge the amount of stress that is happening and mitigating what we can when we can, right? So no, we cannot change the coronavirus right now. And we cannot change the fact that most of us are still stuck at home. That can't change. But creating an environment that brings you joy, you could change that, hopefully, if you're in a safe space, right?
There are choices.
There are choices.
Yeah.
And this is not to say that you're wrong if you're in survival mode. It is just to say, let us empower you to know that you can make choices to support your system, to support your body. And that always comes back to breath, to water, to food, to your environment. I mean, really, it's like these four pillars that are going to be the ultimate foundation for anything you want to achieve.
True that, sister.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's just real.
Well, go kiss my niece.
Yes,
Good night.
I will. She's sleeping, but I will.
I love you. Thank you
Love
so
you so
much.
Thank you.
And just tell everybody where they could find you.
Yeah.
If they want you.
Yeah, so my website is nutrition.com. You could find me at the Fiercely Holistic Podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
Yes, listen, she's got some great people on there.
Yeah, including this beautiful woman. We talk about her 5 rituals. It was a great episode. I loved that. Top 5 rituals. So you could also find me on Instagram here at Aura Nutrition. email me, Ciara at Or Nutrition. Yeah, I mean, I hope to connect with more of you and support more of you, and really being able to step into the highest version of yourself by fueling your body and shifting your habits. So and I love you.
What's your little tagline that you always say?
Drink your water, eat your greens.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I love you. I'm so proud of what you're doing.
And everyone, thank you so much for coming on. Next week, we have a very dear friend of mine. She's a physical therapist that works with, or was working with, she works with the New York City Ballet. She's an old colleague of mine. And that's actually Thursday night. Wednesday night, I am doing a free masterclass on chaos to clarity. So check it out on my website. You can go to my profile up above, and you can find us there. And lastly, integrate health, embrace your wellness, and join the collective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Love you.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
Bye.